I think I was afraid at a certain point of like intimidated by the idea of having to like help people like make real decisions about you know life and living and law. And then when I kind of like at a certain point, like something I could do this. Like I was the rabbi in Camp Haskin. You know, I kind of like got a lot of help from mentors and a lot of help from teachers, and kind of came up with, you know, the top 100 scenarios that can come up, and I mastered that specific area or mastered whatever. I became comfortable enough with that specific area of the same scenarios that repeated themselves, you know, in that summer context. Being a rabbi of a congregation is just much more broad. And you're dealing with families and kids and adults and birth and death and hatch, match and dispatch and all sorts of stuff.
You gotta start bowing and nodding all the time.
Yeah. I like remembering people's names.
You have to mask how you feel. You have to mask how you feel about everything with.
You can't eat it at Kiddush. Exactly.
And how do those rabbis feel about everybody? That's the cost.
Also my wife's father is a congregational rabbi,
Right.
and when there was an opportunity I had in Israel with a beautiful community to like, we got offered to like step into this role, and it was a perfect, like, you know, it seemed like a perfect opportunity where I was professionally and personally, you know, 10 years ago to like take on this shul and like lead it as as a conscious kind of chevra, more of like a lateral type of thing. And I was like kind of like open and excited about it. And I mentioned it to my wife, and I saw her face just like go blank.
Not again.
You know, I saw like a lot of, you know, the pride and the excitement and the joy of the responsibility of leadership, but also that comes with a major price tag. Yeah. And I saw it on her face. I was like, no, I don't want to do that anyway. You know, like,
right.
You know, it wasn't.
So you don't feel this dichotomy between who you are publicly and who you
aspire not to. I mean, I'm sure I am. I mean, everybody's presenting, and we're all kind of like, you know, acting in lots of ways. I mean, we all have a certain brand and persona that we kind of. But I don't know. I'm aspiring for it not to be. It's bad for everybody in that. It takes a tremendous toll on a person, tremendous toll in nefesh, and the soul, and just like your inner world, like the inability to just be okay with yourself and be okay with the people who are most important to you, but also on the people that are around you in your own private space. Like they never get a real shot at having a real connection because you're always having to like, you know, put on airs and afraid to loosen your tie, so to speak, proverbially speaking.
Right.
But it sounds like that cost or that stress that falls mainly on pastoral rabbis in order, like the things that they have to sacrifice.
Everybody,
like,
I think it's everybody.
But that public and private, I mean, that's most exemplified in the pastoral rabbi, isn't it? Because they have such a broad base to have to appeal to and feel connected to. And by design, they can't discriminate in terms of relationships. It's not... Like the congregation wants to feel like the rabbi is equal friends to everybody, and no human being is like that. But they sort of have to do that. I'm wondering if that's just a lot to ask, and it seems necessary, and I understand why. But it's like we all need the rabbi to take one for the team in that sense.
Well,
of
like
like
Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. There's no one who was as great as Moshe in that role. The most self-actualized human being who ever lived in our tradition. And it took It took a real toll on his family, on his kids, and a real toll on his marriage, and a real toll on himself also. Meaning, like at the end of the day, he felt like he was hung out to dry. Right. Tarchanim is the way that Rashi's like they're tough. The people, it's tough to be in a congregation when it's not simple. Now, it's before, you know, the world of Instagram likes, and before, you know, WhatsApp groups, you know, of disgruntled, you know, congregants. Anybody who's in a position of providing a service for a community, whether you're a teacher or you're a manager of a football team, or, you know, you're playing some kind of your role, you're an elected official, or you're the head of the parent board.
It's the political element in life.
It's life. It's just called life.
Right.
It's just called life. Meaning, like, there's always this tension between our private selves and what we do professionally. The work-life balance. I mean, everybody has that. It's just when you mix, you know, your relationship with God. And your mix meaning and depth and an inner world and the world of the spirit and eternity and all these heavy ideas that are usually very private, which we call beino lebein kono, between a person and their maker. Like when you start, you know, when that becomes your skins and furs and spices from the Orient that you're trading for your livelihood. and your family's involved, because like if you're the rabbi, you want to come see my beautiful family and see how my values have been transmitted. So it becomes a heavy price tag on them too,
Right.
and that pressure to present something which is, it's challenging. It's a little bit harder. Like, look, here are my trapezoids. Here are my squares and triangles, because I'm a great calculus teacher. So come take a look at them and look how nicely they dress and act and behave and act. So
But people are able to judge the work as separate from the person in those areas more, and this is much more integrated. I guess that's just the challenge of the job.
yeah, I mean, people still listen to R. Kelly songs, but they're not listening to the shiurim of rabbis who
Actually, that's the intro of this
who've
episode.
who've fallen into fallen from grace.
Right.
You kind of like, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. You're like, okay, these pipes are rusty. I'm not drinking this water. Like, even if the product is beautiful and there's creativity and there's beauty there, somehow we want the vessel to match the light that's inside of it.
So at these like rabbi conferences, like big OU conferences where all the rabbis finally get together, is that where they just talk smack about everybody just to like, it has to happen somewhere. Maybe it's the shul president and the rabbi?
No, but in all seriousness, the rabbi of 2022 is very different than it was. The language, the openness, and the post-Brene Brown era that we're living in. There's an openness of people talking about these things, and a real sense of working through these things and speaking about them in an open and vulnerable way, which is not, I think, is very new, and to the credit of a lot of the rabbinate today. And I think also a credit, hopefully, to our community, and I'm saying our in a very presumptuous, open way. I think people are a little bit more tolerant and open and understanding of the fact that, like, peoples is peoples, and there's a humanity in this also, and like, have a little compassion, a little rachmanis, so to speak, a little sensitivity and patience with people who are just, trying to use their abilities and their knowledge and their kochot, their potential, and their, to lead and guide and help. And the more humility that comes with that guidance, I feel like the more people are forgiving or like patient with the service provider, so to speak, the rabbi. It seems like that. And I was like, if you come in there as the one who has, I have all the answers, and of course people are going to look at you with stink eye.
Yeah, it's definitely a divide between the boomers and like the next generation and how they perceive the whole role.